Maybe the better question is, what were we handed before we were 10? Monsters, myths, missiles, music? We didn't go to the dark side. We stepped into the space that had already been drawn, and we built something inside of it. And that started on Saturday mornings.
Hit it, sisters!
Zoinks! It's the witches!
Easy, guys. It's just the Hex Girls.
I'm gonna cast a spell on you. You're gonna do what I want you to.
Kings and queens,
and the chainsaw for their
knights on white horses, all these things.
That's all, folks.
Okay, welcome everybody to a Tuesday, smaller, shorter edition of the Free Will Burning Podcast. I'm going to be flying solo today. My brother Troy will be back this Friday. We'll be talking more heavy metal music and the things that we usually do, but I wanted to keep a sort of side thread going that we have going on here as far as explaining the whole Gen X experience, how we got here and all this. And you'll see today we're going to talk about some of the things we were exposed to in those early years. Basically, what I want to look at is how we sort of metabolize the world around us and how sometimes the product that we produced was sort of, I guess, misinterpreted or characterized in a way that really wasn't who we were and why we were doing things. Sort of this understanding of Gen X, the mystique. So we're going to take a look at a little bit of the ingredients, the petri dish, so to speak. And to do this, though, I am going to be reading some notes that I have here because I want to make sure that I'm succinct in what I say, because as you can see, I do tend to babble and my brother's not here to back me up and shut me up. So with that out of the way, here we go. People always talk about Friday night. They talk about what we were doing after school, who we were hanging around, what music we were listening to when we were 14, 15. But if you really want to understand Gen X, you have to go a little bit earlier. You have to go to Saturday mornings, before we were 10 years old, before we had opinions, before we had cars, before we had any power at all. Look at what we were watching. Haunted castles, witches, hexes, mad scientists, villains trying to take over the world, monsters in bands. That's what was on at 9 in the morning when we were eating cereal on Saturday mornings. And it wasn't presented as trauma. It was colorful. It was musical. It was funny. But it was still dark. The imagery mattered. The lighting mattered. The tone mattered. Even when it was sweet. Josie, the Pussycats, the Archies, Partridge Family. It was still a band. It was still part of the tribe that we felt. It was still you survive chaos together. We didn't get superheroes as much as we got rhythm sections. And that's interesting. We were being introduced to danger, theatrically, stylized fear, and we didn't flinch. We absorbed it. And that's our starting. And it didn't stop with cartoons. Right about the time we were moving out of elementary school, here comes Dungeons and Dragons.
The game is called Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, and it's become popular with children anywhere from grammar school on up. Not so with a lot of adults who think it's been connected to a number of suicides and murders. The idea of the game, which is played by highly imaginative and intelligent kids, is to assume the role of one of the characters. One game can go on for weeks or even months. The problem seems to be that some kids take it more seriously than others, take it a step further, playing a character who brings them the power in a game they couldn't possibly get in real life.
About 2 months ago, a green eyeball was seen up in the sky. This eyeball was so big it blotted out the sun.
Here comes arcades, dark rooms, neon lights, space invaders, dragons, hit points. And what do the adults do? They panic. They're on 60 Minutes asking if it's satanic, if it's dangerous, if it's corrupting. But what were we actually doing? We weren't summoning demons. We were rolling dice and figuring out how to survive imaginary worlds. We weren't worshiping dragons. We were fighting them. That's the big psychological difference. Fantasy gave us something important, agency. Cartoons gave us monsters. Games gave us strategy. And from the outside, it looked chaotic. From the inside, it felt like rehearsal for a life we were about to lead. Now zoom out to that life. All of this is happening under the Cold War.
I would rather see my little girls die now, still believing in God, than have them grow up under communism and one day die no longer believing in God.
We didn't hide under desks. That was earlier than us. We didn't have to do all that. We knew the button existed. We knew what DEF CON meant. We'd heard about the evil empire. We saw nuclear maps on the news. We knew the world could end in 15 minutes. That atmosphere steeps you. And right about that time, Pink Floyd drops another brick in the wall. That wasn't satanic. That was distance. That was the moment you realized the institutions don't fully speak for you. Boomers marched. Gen X stepped back and built subcultures. We built bands, we built basements, we built private worlds, not because we were evil, because we were adapting to the climate, and the climate was myth, plus missiles. By the time we hit high school, something had solidified. There was a wall, not physical, but cultural. And instead of trying to tear it down, we built something behind it, an amphitheater. That 1980 to 1985 stretch, that was the meat. New wave of British heavy metal, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath already been there, but still. Some of us went harder. Some of us went classic during this time as we move into hair. But the era was ours. It felt like we had our own soundtrack to process everything. And when Red Dawn came out, teenagers fighting off invasion, it didn't feel insane. It felt familiar. Cartoon had showed us monsters. Games had trained us on how to build guilds. Metal gave us catharsis. Cold War gave us stakes. Form a group, survive, figure it out. That's the pattern that had been there since Saturday mornings. Before we get too smug about it, though, the boomers weren't crazy. From their vantage point, the 1980s looked destabilizing. Cold War tension, divorce rising, MTV exploding, heavy metal imagery deliberately provocative, Dungeons and Dragons invoking demons. If you grew up in the 50s, church, flag, job, family, and now your kid is wearing black and talking about dragons while the Soviet Union still has nukes pointed at you, that doesn't feel harmless. It feels like acceleration. They react to protect the order, and we reacted by adapting.
I like the instruments. I don't care for the beat.
You don't care for how fast. What about the lyrics? Have you read any of the lyrics?
I despise the lyrics.
What do you hate about them?
It's because they're all Satan worship.
It's all Satan. Do you think that's they really mean that, or maybe it's just a...
No, I don't. I believe that Eddie likes the beat. I hope he doesn't like the lyrics to the song.
Did she, you quit school?
Yep.
What'd you say then?
Well, it was just one morning I woke up and I've been skipping school for about 2 weeks before that, since school started, and she kind of knew, but I didn't know she knew. And I got up one morning and she goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "Going to school." And she goes, "No, you ain't." And then she just let me stay home. Ever since then, I've just been staying home.
That's the idea. That's when intense experience enters your life. You either get consumed by it or you digest it. We metabolized it. That's what imagination does. That's what music does. That's what games do. Take the fear and turn it into a narrative, into rhythm, into strategy. So when people ask why Gen X turned darker, more independent, more ironic, maybe the better question is, what were we handed before we were 10? Monsters, myths, missiles, music? We didn't go to the dark side. We stepped into the space that had already been drawn, and we built something inside of it. And that started on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, if you drove a cab.
Did you hear the way I hit that high note?